Oh my God, DeDe got a podcast?
What?
DeDe got a podcast.
What's the tea? What's the vibe? What's the hype? Yeah, we live. Talk a little this, a little bit of that, a little bit of love, a little bit of ratchet. That's DeDe. Go DeDe. Go DeDe. Go DeDe. You a bad bitch. You a savage. Making money is a habit.
So it's DeDe's Dope Podcast, and I got to tell everybody something. You know, I've been talking about this on the air. And I've been talking about voting and how important voting is. And it seems that we're having every time we get to a midterm election or whatever, what have you, we have an issue with African Americans getting out to vote. For some reason, we just keep having this same issue. We have the same conversation and dialogue. So I wanted to get more into it. Please introduce yourself. First of all, this woman is running. Let everybody know.
Hello, I'm Veretta Frazier. I am running for the 44th District Court. It's a civil bench in Dallas County wide. Anybody that lives in Dallas County, I am on your ballot as the Democratic nominee for the 44th District Court.
I love it. All right, sir.
Hello, everyone. I'm Louis Bedford IV, and I'm a voting rights attorney, civil rights attorney, election attorney. Everything related to voting, that is something I do my best to know about.
I can already tell you know what you're talking about. Listen to the way he talks, too. He has that authoritative voice where you're like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. All right. So can we talk, first of all, about, Louis, let me ask you first. What do you think is the breakdown and what is the issue in the African-American community, and certainly brown and black communities, but what is the issue with us not getting out to vote? What do you think it is?
It's the feeling as though our elected officials don't care about us. Because oftentimes, whenever it comes to black and brown communities, elected officials only show up whenever they're asking for someone's vote. So there's a very real disconnect there between how do I make sure that this person sees me, sees my values and sees my struggles, rather than just sees me as a commodity that they only need whenever they want something. So trying to build that gap to make sure that politicians and voters know anything that relates to my life, a politician is going to impact it.
Right.
Whether it's my schools, whether it's my streets, whether it's trash pickup. Yeah. Those are the very things that our elected officials impact. In fact, if we want to make sure that our children are able to learn about slavery and not about involuntary relocation, that's something the State Board of Education controls. Another person who is elected.
Who's an elected official.
Yes.
So, and is it that we're not informed enough? Is that what it, because it sounds to me like, I'm wondering, is it so much about, is it a candidate's responsibility, but is it somehow we just don't know and we're afraid to ask or to say, how does this impact my vote? Do you get what I'm saying? Is it some misinformation? I'm trying to understand it too.
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. So it's on the candidates in order to make sure that the voters know exactly what they do, but it's also on people who have information, people like myself, people who are actively trying to engage with people in the community in order to make sure that they know where to go for resources. Whenever everyone has a microphone, it's difficult to be able to say, is this person telling me the truth? Is this person accurate? But it's on us to make sure that people have the information that they need. Because without it, how can we expect anybody to know what's going on? Well, thank you.
That's why we're doing this podcast today. I just want everybody to know that's why. Go ahead, Veretta.
I was just going to chime in. Listen, there is absolutely no excuse for us to not know. You have, most people have a phone in their hands with the internet right there. It is your responsibility as a citizen of the United States to just look up your ballot. It's so easy. There's a website that you can go to, and you can type in your address, and they will tell you, each and every person, they will give you a mock ballot that is specifically for you, where you reside in your area, and you will know every elected official on there. It is important for you to know who your board of trustees for the school districts are.
Right.
Those positions are not paid, but they impact you. If you have children, they impact you significantly. Like Louis was just saying with respect to what do you want your kids to learn?
Right.
I promise you, they would not be trying to shield this information from you if it wasn't important.
Right. That's the thing I keep getting upset. I'm trying to understand where the breakdown, and that's why I wanted to do the show. I'm trying to figure out where is the disconnect between African American voters and going out to vote, right? When you start talking about, and we were just saying this before we started recording, and you were saying all of these movies that we have seen recently and over the last couple of years about how hard it was for us to even get get a fair chance of getting out here to vote, to cast our vote. I mean, come on, you guys, this is crazy where they were talking about poll taxes back in the day that you were having to pay.
Literacy tests.
Literacy tests, yes.
Jelly beans in the bar.
Yeah.
in a jar.
In a jar to count.
But that's the funny thing. People see more representation in media than they do in the elected officials.
Really?
Yes, because we live in a system in the state of Texas where our politicians are able to pick their voters, not the one where voters are able to pick their politicians. Every 10 years, because of the census, we go through redistricting.
Okay.
Everything from the congressional districts all the way down to our precincts. But the people who draw those maps at the state level were predominantly Republicans, which means we could have a state senate district that is wholly in Tarrant County
Okay.
be changed and reorganized. So now it goes all the way to Johnson County, halfway down to Waco. That is what we're looking at right now.
So
And by
so
the way, that just happened.
that
really?
just happened.
That just happened.
Just
where
happened.
they went and did what?
We changed, it's called gerrymandering.
Okay.
They changed all the lines and drew districts to benefit
Them.
a
The
power.
particular
Yep.
party.
The party in power.
And that's okay. Who now do we elect those people who were able to do that? Is
Yes.
is that an elected
Yes.
position?
Yes. Those are the state senators
Oh my God.
and state representatives, people that are going to be on the ballot in November. Those are the people who end up controlling the maps.
Okay.
And that is the reason why we have to make sure that we show up and vote. Because if we don't, elections have consequences.
Yeah.
And if we don't speak up, someone's going to speak up for us.
Okay, hold on a second. Veretta just sighed heavily. I heard it. You're disgusted at times. You get discouraged, disgusted. What?
In the middle of this, so I started campaigning for this particular bench when the judge that was elected ran for and won her bid for the Court of Appeals. So it's an open bench. At that time, halfway through the election process is when the gerrymandering happened last year. And so candidates were running for one district and had to completely redo the ballot because their districts changed. And so their numbers changed. And it affects everyday people
Everybody.
significantly. And people just don't understand. People are apathetic to it. But then when bad things start happening, you want to blame the politicians.
Right.
It's our
And
responsibility.
then say they don't help us, they don't care about us, it doesn't matter. But it's like, well, you didn't go out to vote, so now you've got this certain politician representing you in your district or your area, right?
But there's power in numbers.
Okay.
For example, you have some city council districts where people are able to win with like 70 votes, 100 votes.
Wow.
So if people show up, there's a very real reality we're going to be able to change it. But once again, we have to show up.
Yeah.
And people think my one vote
Won't count.
won't count. It counts.
Yeah.
It counts.
50
Counts.
Just
Votes.
I know it. I know.
counts.
It does. It does. And now, it's sad though because I heard a statistic today that said, let's say North Dallas is voting 10-1 to South Dallas.
I'm out at the polls pretty much every day right now. I was out there all day, first day of voting, when it was raining. Beto O'Rourke came out. You had a lot of local politicians, people who are on the ballots, out there standing at the polls ready to greet you, just to say hello. This is who I am. This is what I'm running for, and thank you for coming out to vote. It's not even, it's bipartisan, so it's not even, please vote for a particular party. We just want to introduce ourselves because the main complaint I hear is that we don't know who, especially the local politicians are on the ballot. We're there.
Yeah.
If you just take time to say hello and just shake the hands of the people who are standing there, we know the laws. We are not going to violate the laws. We know how close
far
to
and close
be to the polling location, but we just want to greet you. And then if you have questions, we're certainly happy to answer any of those, but we understand you're probably going for a lunch break to go vote really quickly or before work. So we're not going to hold you there to try to give you a whole sermon about why you should vote for us. We just want to meet you.
Wow.
You can meet your politicians.
Yeah.
And I'm in North Dallas at their polls, and I'm in South Dallas at the polling locations there. And it is so disheartening to see lines
In North Dallas.
in North Dallas. People standing in lines to vote in the rain. When I go to South Dallas, it's a trinkle.
Okay. You just said something too before we went on, and you were saying that you went to the Martin Luther King Center.
Yes, that's where I typically vote. Now, during early voting, which is usually 2 weeks before Election Day, you can vote any place in the county. You do not have to go to a particular polling location. And so my favorite place to go and vote has always been Martin Luther King Center, right down the street from Fair Park. when I went there, usually there's a nice
line. Or
line.
something. Mm-hmm.
This year, there were not 2 people.
Wow.
It was, and they will put the numbers on the door of exactly how many people have voted at that location. At every location,
Wow.
there is a listing at specific times during the day of how many people have come to this particular polling location to vote. I was there to probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 3:30. Less than 200 people voted at that location that particular day. That is
The Martin Luther King
at
Center.
the Martin Luther King Center. And it is a place that's visible, accessible, and they have so many things going on right there at that center where all you have to do is just go and vote.
Yeah.
So they're not hiding our locations here. They're not making it difficult for you to vote here.
No.
In fact, the early voting times are also more accessible too.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because on the last 2 days of early voting, November 3rd and 4th, the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Oh, 9 p.m. then at the
9
last
p.m.,
2
the
days because I
last
know
2
it's 7 to
days.
7.
Yeah.
Wow.
2 extra hours.
Two
okay.
extra hours.
This is crazy. So let's talk about, what can we do? What can I do? Because here's what I've told somebody too. They often say, when it comes to, elections, and they say it's the local politicians that you're going to really feel the effects, right, of policies and changes and everything else. And I've been saying this about judges. I want you to know, Veretta, is that, oh my gosh, we're friends and I shouldn't say just Veretta like that, right? I should say something else.
No, you can absolutely say Veretta. I'm not elected yet.
Okay.
Now, come Wednesday, you might have to.
Soon to be Judge
Yeah, there it is.
Frazier.
Speak it into existence. There it is. But let's just say this. And I'm glad you said that. I've been telling everybody that you can't be mad when your cousin, your little brother, or somebody is sent to jail or to prison for 20 years on a petty crime by a judge, and you're mad at that judge. And I go, but you had a chance to elect that. You can elect your DA. You can elect, people aren't understanding that. So you can't be mad, right?
You cannot.
I want to
be
make sure
mad.
I'm right on this and I'm not misinforming my audience.
you're not.
Okay.
You are absolutely correct.
Yep.
You have a choice in who is representing you.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to go out and vote, and it's free.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's free. We're Texas is not restricting the voting where you can't have water in line. We're not having all of those
Right.
restrictions
Right.
here. All you have to do is take the time and go. Right now in southern sectors, you don't even have a long line. Just go vote.
I didn't wait. I'll
And
be
if
honest
you
with
need
you. I didn't
help,
have to
ask
wait.
the question.
Yeah.
Ask.
Yeah.
There are hotlines, phone numbers. There's 866-OUR-VOTE. The Democratic Party has a hotline. Ask.
And
Because
there,
go
there
ahead.
are people standing in the parking lots. Many times there are candidates standing in the parking lot wanting to talk with voters, wanting to introduce themselves to voters. We have slate cards. If you need help and you don't know everyone there's recommendations that we have for you. Here are the people. John Wiley Price has a slate card. The Coalition of Pastors have a slate card. Various Democratic organizations and Republican organizations will have slate cards available for you. Both parties are represented at the polls.
I just can't figure this out. And as we talk about, I know you come from a family, your grandfather, let everybody know your grandfather.
So my grandfather, L.A. Bedford Jr., was the first black judge in Dallas County. Became the judge in 1966. 60 years later, we're basically doing the same thing.
Wow.
We're fighting the same fights, dealing with a lot of the same issues. So I just want to make sure I'm doing everything I can to educate voters, to have conversations like this, because if we aren't doing it, who else is going to?
So I guess here's my question. I often say, how do we make it sexy? Huh? I guess we got to make it sexier. Is that what we got to do?
There's power. There's power in it. Power is sexy for a lot of
Right.
people.
There it is. There it is. You're absolutely right. And it is.
And we live in a time, unfortunately, because of our last president, where media matters.
Yes.
And so you are absolutely helping the public to understand, and we've got to get it to the people where they are now, because now is the time.
I got to tell you, I was sitting at an event, and Senator Royce West went up to speak. So did Commissioner John Wiley Price, and they got up and they were talking about the voting, and they were talking about the numbers, right, and the numbers of people that aren't voting and this and that, and they spoke to me. Like you ever, it's almost like when you're sitting in church and the pastor says something, but you realize he's really not speaking to you, but he's speaking to you. And they spoke to me that day, and I said, what can I do? I have a podcast. I have a radio show. I got to do better. I got to get people to vote, but I got to get people to understand how important their vote is. Because, it's one thing to keep telling somebody to do something, and they're just going to be like, what? But maybe we have to always explain how important it is, how valuable it is, right?
And
it's valuable.
There's no excuse. Churches will, if you contact a church, you don't have a car, they will send somebody to come pick you up to vote.
Yes, they will.
If you have a disability and you can't walk, guess what? At the polling stations,
you can
many
vote
of
curbside.
them
You sure can.
will have a rolling ballot that they will bring out to your car.
I've seen that.
So there is absolutely
No excuse.
Take your children with you.
I want to
You
see
don't have
us
a
do more.
babysitter? Take your children with you.
And if
They
you need
need
an
to see
assistance,
democracy as well.
Yeah.
And if you need assistance, ask for it. If you need an interpreter, ask for it.
Yeah.
There are resources available for you. So whenever you show up, you can vote. Even if you need help, once again, ask for it. Provisional ballot, regular ballot. There are resources there for you to make sure that you're able to vote.
Do me a favor. I tell you what we could do right now. Why don't you explain to everybody, too, as we have a chance to, you can explain what happened and some of their tactics. Let's go over that again so that everybody understands why it's valuable, right? Why it should be more valuable to us than anybody and anything. Can you explain to those who don't know how tough it was and some of the antics that were put into place? We talked about it a little earlier, but,
for example, in 2020, an election where everybody was scared about COVID, Harris County ended up having 24-hour voting to make sure that if people wanted to be able to vote, that they would be able to do so. Some of our state legislators said if people are voting between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m., they must be up to no good. So they limited the early voting times. Harris County also had drive-through voting, where somebody could just pull up, have an express voting machine brought to them, and be able to vote. That was also made illegal. County officials wanted to be able to send vote-by-mail ballot applications out to people. State legislators made that illegal.
Jeez.
So it was a lot of different methods, a lot of different things that elected officials and even county officials wanted to do to be able to expand voting. Our state legislators made that illegal. But each and every one of those state legislators are on the ballot now.
Oh, wow.
Each and every one of them. So if we want to be able to change that, we need to make sure that we show up in November and do so.
Okay. I can't. This is ridiculous. I didn't know that. I'm thinking.
And we're not even talking 60 years ago.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
We're talking
2 years
about.
ago.
This is just 2 years ago.
Yes.
Okay. If y'all don't understand how valuable that thing, look, put your ID around your neck and go in there. And you know how, like when you were a kid, you had a key around your neck so you wouldn't lose it. Somehow we got to do something that says beyond I voted sign or something. We need to do something else to encourage this a little bit more.
I was just at an organization where they were handing out IDs. Because in order to vote,
You have to have an ID.
You need an ID.
There were over 500 people that showed up
To get an ID.
to get an ID so that they can vote.
But at least they came. That's what I'm
At
going
least-
to clap it up for them
And
500.
it was amazing
Yeah.
that this organization did that for these people who were otherwise disenfranchised.
Right. So is there an organization that you can think of right now that if there's somebody wanting to find out more information about the different positions, about voting, is there one website that you can recommend?
League of Women Voters. League of Women Voters has a nonpartisan voter guide. So regardless of what elected position you're trying to look up, they ask every candidate a list of questions and each one of them answers. So I would say that, and also Vote 411, votetexas.org. A lot of organizations have websites and resources available. So if anyone needs it, they can access it.
So before I let you go, because I know you're busy, and look, Veretta, we got to get out here and vote for you. What made you want to be a judge? Because, we've known each other for a while, and I know you as the attorney, Veretta Frazier, but now judge?
Yes.
Why?
And so first, let me just say I am a partner at Weston Associates, and Lewis also is an associate at Weston Associates.
Yes, I am.
And
Thank
so
you.
we work with Royce West. He is my partner. I've always wanted to be a judge. When I was a very little girl, my mother would drag me to the courthouse with her. We owned buildings in Chicago. Grew up in Chicago, and so we'd go to collect rent, and she always looked like she didn't quite know where she was supposed to be. And so to me, I saw these men walking around, predominantly men at that time, walking around with briefcases. So it looked like a field trip, and I thought, this is very cool. I want to be here when I grow up. And then there was a female judge that helped my mom and treated my mom with such respect and dignity.
Wow.
And she was able to do what she needed to do at the time. And so that just left a very lasting impression on me. And so that's what I wanted to do.
And you said, I'm going to do it. And now is the time.
And now is the time.
Kids are grown pretty much. You were like, this is it.
Yes. My last one at home is dreading that I might pay too much attention to him. And so time for me to do something for me now.
Yep.
And this has always been a lifelong dream. So this is the right time.
I love it. I'm proud of you, girl. I'm proud of you. Veretta Frazier, girl. Well, thank you so much for just enlightening us. I appreciate you coming as well, Lewis. We needed this. I want the audience and everybody listening, anybody watching, please vote. Please get out and vote. And not just, they often say this during the presidential, midterms are more important than you even know. They really are.
Listen, the midterms, you're voting for the president of your state.
Yep.
The governor
Basically, yeah.
is the president of your state.
Yep.
He has tremendous power. If you care about pro-choice issues, vote.
Vote. Heck, if you care about your state, I see so many people representing and repping their state, whether you're from Texas, New York, California. Somebody will say, I'm from this side, I'm from Dallas, I'm from this. I always say this about people. Don't sit up there and tell me and rep a place and you don't own a place, a block in it, number one, but don't rep it if you haven't voted either, though. If you aren't,
true.
Right? At this point, you can't even rep. Don't even do it if you haven't voted.
Also, look at this. 200 years ago, Frederick Douglass said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will." That ever rings more true today as it did then.
I knew he was smart. I knew when he walked in with that voice and he's quoting. My goodness. You know what? You took a quote from how long ago? 200 years ago?
200 years
Okay.
ago.
That's how we're going to end this podcast. I think I may be in over my head.
Never.
I appreciate y'all coming in. I really, really do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for caring about this issue because our community needs your voice. And your voice reaches everyone. So thank you so much for bringing a highlight to this
Thank
issue.
you. I'll clap it. Man,
Thank you.
these smart attorneys right here. It's DeDe in the morning, DeDe's Dope Podcast.
What's the tea? What's the vibe? What's the hype? Yeah, we live. Talk a little this, a little bit of that, a little bit of love, a little bit of ratchet. That's DeDe. Go DeDe. Go DeDe. Go DeDe. You a bad bitch. You a savage. Making money is a habit. Ow.